Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. If I can't enjoy Robopocalypse, I guess I'll have to settle for Toymageddon. Yes, quietly, a few months ago, Steven Spielberg pulled the plug on Robopocalypse, his adaptation of the cult hit novel which was set to star Chris Hemsworth and Anne Hathaway. Who would pull the plug on that? But he did, and Robopocalypse is dead, yet Toymageddon lives. What is Toymageddon? Well, it's being set up at Fox for Justin Lin to produce. They've acquired the rights for him on a property, an idea really, that was dreamed up by Anonymous Content, which is about a management, somewhat production company. One of those, the lines have all been, blurred recently with the way the studio system is, disintegrated. Now agencies are taking over that kind of area where they're kind of creating movies out of house and letting studios bid on complete packages. But anyway, Anonymous Content came up with this idea. Justin Lin was like, "That's awesome," and Fox is like, "I love it too, Justin Lin. Let's make it." Now, the Justin Lin name, you've heard it a lot, especially here on Beyond the Trailer. He helped revive the Fast and Furious franchise. He'll be doing the Bourne installment, the next Bourne film for 2015. And then, interestingly, as I'm sure you've heard me mention a few times recently, because I think it's such a great development, he'll then be heading to China to do a Chinese language and potentially also English language remake of Shaolin Temple for the Chinese film industry. He'll be working outside of Hollywood. Justin Lin's originally from Taiwan, but of course he made his name in Hollywood. He's already now, I think, considered a big Hollywood director. He can write his own ticket, and I think it's interesting that he's accepted a ticket from China. So we'll see how that impacts his career, for good or bad. But Fox still apparently loves him, and they're working on making this movie happen. So what's the setup? Now, Anonymous Content came up with this, but I don't think they had to think very hard because it sounds a lot like Toy Story. And I'm actually surprised that Fox would be working on a film that seems to just blatantly copy the trademark characters of Pixar that really put them on the map and have been their most lucrative franchise. Toy Story 3 made over $1 billion worldwide. It was the first animated film to do so, I believe. Although Despicable Me 2 was coming awfully close. And some of you are rooting for Frozen to also join the $1 billion club. We'll see if that happens. So anyway, what's this story about? Well, they're keeping it under wraps. The details haven't leaked. We'll be talking about leaks later today in the episode. But just basically the log line has come out, and the idea is, or the elevator pitch, and it's that a toy factory goes crazy, and that's where hijinks ensue. So that does sound a lot like Toy Story, right? How can you do any toy-based story and or they're right there, Toy Story. It's a story about toys. The only thing I can think they could maybe do is to really, well, of course it would still be computer animated, go for just absolute realism and make it take place in a live action setting. So while Toy Story, while computer animated, is very much an animated fictional world, it doesn't, it's not photorealistic, even though Pixar is now capable of doing that, as are, of course, a number of special effects houses, as we see every week when we go to the movies, kind of creating kind of a movie where that happens. They're similar, I forget the name of it now off the top of my head. Kirsten Dunst starred in this movie about toys having a battle and on this suburban street. And so maybe if they did something, tried to go in that direction, but with more advanced special effects. But even still, you'd really just have a live action Toy Story. So, and I think, Toy Story with their Army Men they really have all the bases covered because they have so many different toys. I think they've covered a lot of genres in the Toy Story films and a lot of emotions. They just have all the bases covered. So I don't know what room is left for Toymageddon, but obviously from its title, Toymageddon means business. So we'll see what happens if they want to take on Pixar, who, of course, is already making the Toy Story shorts. They haven't put that franchise to bed. It's not like a new franchise can be born. They'll still be competing with Toy Story, especially that rumored fourth film that Tim Allen said he was signed for. Oh, Tim. Okay, so that's the first story of the day. Very interesting. It's interesting also to see Justin Lin moving into just producing. Instead of only, a lot of times directors produce their own films that they make, or it's a very popular trend to have their wife do it. Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, both of them, their wives produce their films with them. I guess that keeps it in the family, so to speak, or in the relationship. But it's nice to see, I'm always kudos to people who try and diversify their portfolio. I think it's career security, and also I think it's probably more rewarding just to have multiple paths. So Justin Lin, so popular at this point, so successful, he's building an empire. All right, great. First story. So the second story, speaking of animation and speaking of Toy Story, Illumination Entertainment is offering up their own, I guess, homage to Toy Story. I guess Toy Story maybe is just so well written and so iconic and so simple that a lot of things can seem like they're copying it. But do tell me what you think. So Illumination Entertainment, of course, is the house that Despicable Me built. It's a very successful animation studio run by Chris Meledandri, who used to be at Fox Animation. He came over here to start this. Now they have a deal with Universal. Despicable Me 2 is almost at $1 billion, as I mentioned, and it is the most profitable film that Universal has ever had in the history of the studio. So they love Illumination Entertainment. And so Illumination Entertainment, of course, is continuing with the Despicable Me franchise and the Minions film. They announced Despicable Me 3. But they're also moving on to try and have other films. Of course, they're doing their Dr. Seuss work, which we discussed just recently about, they're remaking How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's a purely animated film because, Dr. Seuss's widow was so happy with the work they did in the Lorax. But then they also made Hop, which didn't really work out. Russell Brand was the voice of the Easter Bunny. James Marsden was running around with him. Craziness, and also Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory. Just didn't really click for them. But they're going to try with animals again in an untitled Pets movie. And basically, when you go out to work in the day, your pets have a life without you, and they kind of have their own little community. A lot like when, Andy leaves his room and the toys go about their business together, socializing in a way that Andy would not be able to dream of. So this takes place actually in Manhattan, and there's a dog who will be voiced by Louis C.K. And, during the day it says, when the owners go and leave and go to work, the pets, they talk, they have a hierarchy, they have kind of their own little community that this dog will be in charge of, and they share that one of the funny things, they share embarrassing stories about their owners, etc. It's basically like hanging around Starbucks, but in someone's apartment. But anyway, Louis C.K.'s dog's whole world is challenged when Eric Stonestreet's dog shows up, when his owner's wife or girlfriend, I forget the exact her exact relationship to him is, but she brings home this really unkempt dog, which will be voiced by Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family. What does that sound like? Does that sound kind of like Woody being challenged by Buzz? Very similar. So they kind of get into it, and they end up outside of the apartment where they run into Kevin Hart, who will be voicing a cute, adorable little bunny, which I think is very funny because, of course, as you all know, Kevin Hart is very small, but a powerful, small talent. I have a lot of respect for Kevin Hart, especially his ride-along success. 2 weeks at #1, that's just so phenomenal. Going to cross the century mark. Big doings for Kevin Hart. And so now he can add animated movie to his resume and a lead role. So they run into this cute little bunny called Snowball, voiced by Kevin Hart, and he leads an army of abandoned pets who are out for revenge. And it's up to these two dogs to stop Snowball and his army. And I'm sure to befriend him, and I'm sure by the end of the movie, Snowball finds a home. We all know how these things turn out, but it's best when we get surprised. That's what makes the best movies, when we don't quite see what's coming. So we'll see what about this. I have a lot of faith in Illumination Entertainment. I really like the product they put out. I love the Despicable Me movies. I love the Lorax. I did have problems with Hop. I thought Hop did miss the mark, so I thought it deserved not to continue. So let's see, maybe that was just a snafu, and this film will continue in the great, very short tradition of great content coming out of Illumination Entertainment. It will be directed by Grace Randolph. Remember, all the talent at Illumination Entertainment is largely French. I think Pierre Coffin is the other co-director for the Despicable Me movies, and he voices the Minions and will be handling the Minions movie. But Illumination Entertainment is based outside of Paris, so that's a very interesting fact about them. But Grace Randolph will be directing here along with another person who will co-direct with him who did some of the Minion shorts. So I think this sounds pretty good, but again, it sounds awfully like Toy Story, and I don't understand why when they're having these brainstorming sessions, someone doesn't go, okay, I have to do it. It's like this other movie. And everyone, as good as the idea might have been gelling, they have to realize that to some extent they're kind of ripping off something else. And I know Shakespeare said there's nothing new under the sun, but you can change it more than this. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story I want to talk about are all these leaks that are coming out on scripts. Now, of course, we talked about Quentin Tarantino and The Hateful Eight, which leaked. Despite him only giving it out to 5 people, it leaked. He's suing Gawker because he's saying they're encouraging people to read the leaked copy. It's a very interesting landmark case. We'll see how that goes. Gawker is fighting him, and they think they have the right to do what they did to send the link and publish it and tell everybody to go read the script. Tarantino obviously does not, so we'll see. That could be a really interesting, set an interesting precedent for scripts going forward in leaks. But also there was some really big leaks about X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, of course, there were some leaks just a few days ago, but there was some really big leaks earlier this week, in the middle of the week. Huge leaks. Leaks to the degree that if they're true, I am even kind of sorry I read them. And that's one of the reasons I didn't share them. I contemplated covering them because, I think there's intense interest in these movies, especially comic book films, but I think this is just really being a party pooper, and just really, it's not a nice thing to do. We'll see if they actually turn out to be true, but these are just really huge leaks. And usually, usually spoilers don't bother me. I'm someone who doesn't mind spoilers. They're a hazard of the job. but I think that in this case, I was very upset about it. And Transformers also had some leaks come out in terms of plot and characters. And I think that I'm wondering, can this be stopped? What's happening here? Is this like the paparazzi? Is this the paparazzi version of like for writers, where maybe these websites are offering a bounty? I know that the reason the Fox stuff got out from Days of Future Past at first was because someone who I guess was disgruntled and fired off the film, the rumor was trying to sell script pages for profit, and the first initial leaks that came out were because he was giving out test pages to prove he had the real thing. And potentially maybe someone did bite and give this guy the payoff, and he gave him the whole script, and that's why you have this new round of leaks about what's happening. And so are there no repercussions for that? And then also, how can you stop this? Is it possible? And should there be some kind of gentleman's agreement among all these media sites not to publish these things? I mean, it really is like what came first, the chicken or the egg? And there's such tough competition for hits and website traffic. It's really changing the way the entertainment news industry works. And there was a greatly fascinating article about it I think actually right before the holidays, and I think the LA Times or LA Weekly, I forget exactly where, someone pointed it out to me about how the news game is changing and rumors have just taken over. And I try to stay away from that as much as possible, because I think that it's not professional, it's not fun. And I know sometimes it is fun to talk about them, but sometimes when especially when these things are debunked so soon, you kind of just feel like you wasted your time and energy even thinking about something that was fake. So it's really becoming really difficult out there to tell what's true, what's a lie, and there's such mercenary intent, literally with this script, that it's just really a shame. Just another part of Hollywood that needs serious fixing. But I'm curious, do you think, some people said Tarantino should have watermarked his scripts. What do you think can be done to protect from these kind of leaks? Do you think they're as harmful as I do? For instance, I still feel, and I've mentioned a few times now with these, as more and more leak stories come out, I feel The Dark Knight Rises was really hurt by being able to see that Marion Cotillard was playing Talia by those set leak photos because they were shooting in public and they hit the internet, and it ruined a major spoiler point. I mean, who's to say it wouldn't have been ruined maybe some other way, but I think it really hurt the power of that reveal. I mean, I don't know. The reveal wasn't very well done and the character wasn't very well realized, but that didn't help. All right, so those are the first three stories of the day. The question comes from Amini Ahmed. And Amini Ahmed says, "Hello, Grace, long-time viewer, first time to try and ask a question. Success on your first try. Although I have to tell you, I don't go out of my way just to pick first-time people. I mean, it's great when that happens, but some of you have said, oh, Grace, you've never answered my question. I've asked so many times. It's not personal. Trust me, I'm just trying to look, as I said before, for questions that I think are timely and that I think a number of people will be interested in the answer. But please don't give up trying, and know that I am going through and checking all the questions, especially at least for the first 24 to 48 hours of morning movie news. That's the best place to ask them, in the comment sections of that video. But there's no rules or ways to better get your question asked, and I consider them all equally. So Amini says, first time question. With race change from white to black of some of the comic book characters like Heimdall, Nick Fury, Perry White, and Johnny Storm, it's really rumored, a very strong rumor, that Michael B. Jordan has that role sewn up for the new Fantastic Four. Amini continues saying, do you think that in the future, due to the fact that the increase of Hollywood interest in China, we will see a character change from white to Asian? And do you think fans will accept it? Love your channel, Amini from UAE. So that's awesome. I believe that's the United Arab Emirates, I think, right? That's awesome. It's so great to talk to someone on the other side of the globe. And I apologize if that's not where you're from, but I believe I got it correct. But Amini Ahmed, thank you for your question. And I think it's a really interesting one. And I think changing race is a double-edged sword for characters, and I think sometimes it works and I think sometimes it doesn't. I think sometimes a character can find itself in a rut. Doesn't really work. The character's not really timely, to appropriate to the society, how it's evolved, and so sometimes it does work to change a character's race. For instance, I thought that the Nick Fury change was very good. I thought that added some diversity to the Avengers films, and Sam Jackson's very good in the role. I don't even know that it was really a choice of race change, maybe just he ended up being the right actor for that, which I hope that's the reason they cast him. Perry White for Lawrence Fishburne, great choice. I thought he was very good. He was one of the strongest points in Man of Steel. I love what he did with the character, although I don't think anybody would bury a story about an alien just because they felt it might give people the heebie-jeebies. I mean, damn it, man, do you report the news or not? So that I had a problem with that. But Lawrence Fishburne did a very good job in the role, and I think it added, a new interest into the character. Where I think that having him be white, it never really caught on with fans. Perry White was never really a fan favorite, and they never developed the character. It's not like he was Jim Gordon, who had a very defined past and storyline and mythology. And an image, a very well-defined image. Perry White never really became a confidant Clark Kent or Superman, never really was a major player in these stories. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to really know anything about Perry White as a character and an individual, so why not take him in a different direction and do something new and fresh with him? I know people are divided on, making Johnny Storm a black character. I'd have to see how it turns out. I think Michael B. Jordan is a very good actor, but I do worry, I don't want this to be a Heimdall situation where in an effort to inject diversity into a franchise, they really waste an actor. I think so many people are probably upset, including myself, that Idris Elba is stuck playing Heimdall in comic book movies. I mean, of all the great roles he could play, Luke Cage he could have been. He could have been, Jon Stewart, Green Lantern. There's so many, Black Panther. I think he'd be a great T'Challa. So many things he could have done, and he's just stuck as, I think, Spill.com made a great joke about how he just really was kind of like Asgard's doorman, and I thought it was, it didn't occur to me, but when they made the joke, you couldn't not see it anymore. It was so clever and really hit the nail on the head, and it's, just accidental racism, but something, I think, Marvel should have caught that. I wish somebody was, checking this for them, just to make sure stuff like that didn't get through, because it's a shame. And so I hope that this is a good role for Michael B. Jordan. I would hate to see him just shoehorned into a role that they didn't really tailor to him just for the case. Just, it shouldn't be a stunt. This shouldn't be gimmick casting. And so I would say the same for Asian characters. I have no problem with making Blink Asian by casting Fan Bingbing in the role in Days of Future Past. My problem is she probably is not going to have anything to do and probably only be there for a few moments. I think I have no problem with that at all. I'd love to see, we'll see how Big Hero 6 does. That's that big question here. While these movies are doing very well, China is a big movie audience and they have a lot of money to spend, and Hollywood is really paying a lot of attention to them for that reason. We're going to have to see how Transformers 4 does and also how Big Hero 6 does, because these are movies that have Asian characters, take place in Asia. Transformers, they have like secondary, maybe even third level Asian characters. They're not really integral to the film, but it's a start. But Big Hero 6 is supposed to have an entirely Asian cast, so we'll see if they stick with that. I hope they do. But if these films do well, and Hollywood will always do whatever they feel they can make money off of. So if these characters are more accepted, and I think, comic book people and anime people, fans of that, even in the United States, have no problem with Asian characters. And so I don't know why Hollywood insists on having to whitewash things. That's very old school thinking. Yesterday I was talking about the fact that Hollywood can't reconcile the fact that someone could be funny and sexy, and for some reason they can't reconcile the idea that white audiences are comfortable with a diverse cast, despite the success of the Fast and Furious franchise. I don't know what's going on with them. That's crazy. So anyway, Amini, to your question, I think that you might see that happen. I hope it's done in an effective way that's helpful to everyone. But I think ideally, in terms of any new characters, female, black, Asian, Hispanic, all of these different, different areas to change it besides your typical white guy. Just like I feel the same way I do in comics. I hope it's not just done. I think when you change a character, it just becomes a gimmick. I would love to see new original characters spring up that are this way to begin with. A great black character that isn't just, like, oh, look, it's like Wolverine, but he's black. Or as they literally did with Wolverine for real. Oh, it's Wolverine, but it's a teenage girl. Let's have these characters have their own identities. There are rich characters out there. Luke Cage has become a great character. Black Panther, so much potential. Black Widow, they're doing a really nice job with, but Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, they can do something there. There's also some great Asian characters. They're trying to do more with Shang-Chi in the comics. That could work. But anime has a ton of Asian male characters and female characters they could draw from. And then also for Hispanic characters, I think, comic books need to work on that a little bit as well. They tried to do that. Some of the Spider family, Spider-Girl right now, I believe, is Latino. So I think you see some aspects of that. Miles Morales obviously is a great case of this, a great original character who I think is very original despite being another Spider-Man. I think they gave him they really put a lot of depth in developing his backstory, so it doesn't just seem like a gimmick, at least to me. But I think these characters have to be earned, and I want to see more diversity, but not just as tokens. You want to see this really take shape. So that's what I think. I think audiences will be okay with. I think Hollywood would be surprised what audiences are okay with as long as there's good storytelling. That's the real bottom line, and that's where the problems lie, not with the color of the skin of the characters. I think America is becoming, all audiences globally, but, U.S. audiences are becoming a lot more open. And I don't want to see segregated films. I think hopefully we'll start, you're seeing that because that's always the first steps, but I'd love to see more mixed race casts like you do see in the Fast and Furious films. And so I think Marvel is a trailblazer here. They're making a lot of money, so they're really, I think, going to have to lead the path on this. Or DC could always, I don't know. Let's not get DC involved in this. They just have to get their house in order first before they start trying to add layers on top of that. So that's my answer to your question, Amini. I hope you liked it. Thank you for asking it, and I hope everyone will write down below what they think of today's 3 questions and the viewer. 3 top stories, the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions you might have. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Bye.